The 15th day of December. After a long journey through the burrows, Archibald and the nieces finally arrived at the White Palace, Pendulum's home. Archibald and Clipper admired the many fine clocks in Pendulum's workshop as Tandra and Balto prepared rice pudding. Pendulum was polishing his trusted oil can with a cloth. "I haven't had guests here in the White Palace for a long time," he said happily. "Can I help you stir the rice pudding, Tandra?" Archibald asked. "Certainly, Archibald," she answered, passing him the spoon. Suddenly his eyes were the size of saucers. "I can see you, Tandra. I can see you," he shouted, turning to Balto. "I can see you too, Balto." "The magic has worn off," Tandra said. "We're no longer invisible." "What a relief. Now Archibald won't be bumping into me all the time, or stepping on my feet," Balto said. "As soon as we're finished eating, we should continue on to the Nice Palace," Pendulum suggested. "Funica must surely have discovered us missing by now. We won't be safe here at the White Palace for very long." "Will I be able to live with you at the Nice Palace?" Archibald asked. "Of course," Tandra said, giving Archibald a hug. "Did you hear that, Spike? We're going to live in the Nice Palace," Archibald said, stuffing his mouth with a spoonful of rice pudding. But Spike wasn't there. He was back at the Troll Castle with Funica. "Oh, Archibald," Clipper said. "We forgot Spike." "Funica doesn't like Spike," Archibald said, "and Spike is my friend. I can't go to the Nice Palace without my best friend." "But Archibald, we can't turn back now," Pendulum said. "I have to go back and get him," Archibald said, looking from one face to another. "I can't leave Spike. He's my friend." "One friend sure is better than none. Spike always doubles my fun. Candy tastes better when you're two, so keep a piece in your shoe. Spike can always make me smile when I'm sad every once in a while." While Archibald was worrying about his good friend Spike, the prince was waiting for Miranda in the great hall of the royal palace. It was filled with red spruce trees. He was pacing back and forth because Miranda was late for their meeting. Finally, she entered the great hall and ignored the room full of trees. "Miranda, where have you been? You were supposed to meet me here yesterday," the prince said. "I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I've been ill the last few days." "Yes," she repeated. "I've been ill." She didn't want to tell the prince that she had spent the night at Chloe's secret laboratory listening to stories and adventures about the nieces. "Ill? Why didn't you send me a note? I hope you're feeling better," the prince said, concerned. "Yes, thank you." "Then we'll better drive out to the construction site and make up for lost time. The palace must be finished by Christmas Day." But Miranda had planned to spend the rest of the day with Chloe. She wanted to help him find a spell from the spell book of charms so that they could help the nieces. "I'm sorry, Your Highness. I can't go out there today," she said. "I think I've still got the flu." She coughed another unconvincing cough. "Why do I feel like you're keeping something from me?" the prince said, circling Miranda. "Oh, all right," I confessed. "I never was very good at telling lies. I've been spending some time with my uncle, but don't ask me anything else. I can't tell you more because you won't believe me." "Try me," the prince said, crossing his arms, "and that's a royal command." Miranda hesitated, but knew better than to refuse. "If you insist." "Uncle Chloe and I have been awake all night trying to find a way to help the nieces," Miranda said. The prince began to laugh. "You mean Chloe has been entertaining you with fairy tales? I thought you were too old for make-believe, Miranda." "I knew you wouldn't believe me. This is all your fault. You've placed the nieces in great danger by making the palaces disappear," Miranda said, "and I don't have time to waste trying to change your mind." She started for the door. "But Miranda," the prince called, running to the doorway, "you didn't even notice the red spruce." "It's obvious you made another mistake. I told you my favorite Christmas tree was a white spruce," she said, disappearing around the corner. The prince shook his head in disbelief and went back to the great hall and sat on the windowsill and watched the snowflakes as they fell outside. "I've had enough. Miranda's planning to sabotage my Christmas palace. She and Chloe were trying to keep me from finishing it. And all this talk about nieces, what do they think I am, a child?" He took the magic compass from his pocket. "I'll show them," he said, and opening the compass, he pointed the palace needle over the White Palace on the dial, and with a smirk, he snapped the compass shut. He opened the compass again. With a quick twist of his wrist, he set the needle in motion so that it would run on its own. From now on, the magic compass would make one palace in the kingdom disappear every day. At that moment, Funica was balancing a tray of soup. She had entered the dungeon of the Troll Castle. Spike followed, nipping at her heels. "Stop biting me," Funica growled, "or I'll make you into dog soup." She turned the corner to find the cell door wide open and her prisoners gone. She threw the tray on the floor and poked her nose into the cell. "They're gone, and Archibald with them," she bellowed. "When I catch him, I'm going to make him into soup, too." She shook her paw at the empty cell. "I don't know how they did it, but I know how I can follow them. One of my magic powders will do the trick." Soon after Funica discovered her prisoners had escaped, Archibald and the nieces were standing in the courtyard of the White Palace. Tandra passed Archibald the lunch she had packed for his trip. "Are you sure you want to go back to Troll Castle, Archibald?" Clipper asked. "Yes, I have to help Spike," Archibald said. "Are you sure you can find your way home?" Pendulum asked. "Yes, it's a day's travel through the forest in the direction of the cold wind." Why don't you return through the burrow? Balto said. This is probably one of the only chances I'll ever get to see the kingdom, and I want to see the trees, feel the snow under my paws, and listen to the birds. Until now, I've only dreamt about them. We don't have those things in the glen. Tandra dabbed her tears from corners of her eyes with her hanky. We'll miss you, Archibald, she said, blowing her nose. Archibald gave his new friends a big hug and entered the forest. The nieces continued waving until Archibald disappeared among the trees. When they turned to go back inside the White Palace, they discovered that it was no longer there. It had vanished. Oh no, the White Palace is gone, Pendulum cried. The prince used that magic compass to make my home vanish. Then we must continue our journey through the burrows to the Nice Palace, Balto said. It's a good thing your oiling can didn't vanish too. Oh, Pendulum, Tandra said, all your beautiful clocks are gone forever. Wait until I get my hands on that magic compass, Pendulum growled. Then I'll fix it. Then we'd better hurry, Balto said. The Nice Palace must be next. The nieces took one last look at the spot where the White Palace once stood. Gone, Pendulum thought, and with it the mechanical toy made for Clipper. Silently, the nieces entered the burrow and continued their journey homeward towards the Nice Palace. But the nieces were not the only travelers that day. In the dungeons of the Troll Castle, Finika peeked into the powder pouch she had packed for her own trip. I have all my magic powders with me, she said, and this is the one that will help me now. She held the canister up to the light. Nice foot powder. Just what I need, she mumbled, and sprinkled the powder on the floor. Suddenly the footprints of all the nieces appeared. Excellent, Finika shouted, shaking more powder onto the floor. She followed the footprints until she came to the stone wall. Quickly she found the loose stone and pushed it. It fell to the floor on the other side of the burrow. Finika stepped through the hole and replaced the stone. All I have to do is follow the footprints, and before you know it, I'll be at the Nice Palace. And then I'll find the Nice handbook, she said, letting out a troll laugh that echoed inside the burrows. Spike had been left alone at Troll Castle, and he could hear Finika's laughter as it faded down the burrow. There was nothing else for him to do but wait. He spied the tray of soup that Finika had dropped, and eagerly lapped it up off the floor. At least he wouldn't be hungry. He lay down and curled himself up in a ball and waited for the return of his good friend Archibald. Would Finika's magic powders lead her to the nieces? And would Archibald be able to find his way back to Troll Castle to rescue his friend Spike? Until tomorrow, good night.